This video is going to give you some guidance on completing the iXL section for K.1, K.2, K.3, and K.5. So we're going to go through and look at each of these sections, look at the types of questions they're going to ask, and I'm going to give you some guidance on how to complete them. So the first one here is K.1. This is on characteristics of quadratic functions. So for the majority of this, they're going to be giving you a graph of a quadratic, and you have to state certain things about it. So this first question is asking, what are the coordinates of the vertex? So the vertex of a quadratic is going to be either the lowest or the highest point, depending on if a graph opens up or opens down. This quadratic opens up, so the vertex is going to be the point down here at the very bottom. So I want to name the coordinates of this point with both the x and the y. Where the x is 0, the y is negative 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So the coordinates of my vertex are going to be 0 and negative 8. And that's all you have to do for that one. So again, I have a different quadratic. This one is saying, what is the y-intercept? The y-intercept, when you're looking at a picture of the graph, is where does your graph cross the y-axis? You want the y value. The x value is always understood to be 0 because it's going to be on the y-axis. So if we count down here, this is where my y-intercept is, and that is at negative 9. So that's what I put in for the y-intercept. This one is asking for y-intercept again. That y-intercept value is going to be 0, so I'm going to go ahead and put that in. This one is asking us for a vertex. Let's see if they have any other types of questions here. Okay, so this one is saying, what is the maximum value? Anytime they ask for the maximum value or the minimum value, they want the y-coordinate of the vertex. So my vertex is up here at 0, 0. The y value is 0, so that is going to be my maximum. So again, anytime it says maximum value or minimum value, that is y-coordinate of the vertex. Axis of symmetry. So axis of symmetry, and I have this on the smartboard slide here. This is when you're looking at equations, this type of information, but I do want to reference this here because you can see this axis of symmetry down here. It's x equals negative b over 2a. That's, if you have the equation. If you don't have the equation, you still have to put the x equals, but then you're putting the x coordinate of the vertex. So if we go back here, anytime it says axis of symmetry, you're always going to start off with x equals because it's an equation of a vertical line, and vertical lines are always x equals. So now I want to find the vertex. The vertex is at negative 1, positive 1. The x coordinate there is negative 1 because if I were to draw in this vertical line here, that's going to cross down through negative 1 on the x-axis. So my axis of symmetry is x equals negative 1. And I believe those are the only types of questions you're going to be asked. So you'll be asked about mins and maxes, axis of symmetry, vertex, and y-intercept. This minimum value is 0 because that's the lowest y value that we go here. This one, here's another axis of symmetry. So we see axis of symmetry, we put x equals, and then I want to figure out where my vertex is. So 1, 2, 3, it's at negative 4, and it's down at negative 7, but the x coordinate is negative 4, so x equals negative 4 is going to be where my axis of symmetry falls. And that's going to be K1. So let's go back and look at K2. K2 is going to be asking the same types of questions, but instead of giving you a picture of a graph, you're going to be given an equation. And so that's where you're going to be using some of the information that I put on the smartboard. So this first question, find the y-intercept. Notice the format that this is set up in. It is in standard form because there's no parentheses. So this is the information that you're going to need to know for the equations. We are going to be referencing what's over here on the left rather than what's over on the right because of the setup. So for the left, this is what you do whenever you have no parentheses. On the right, when you have a set of parentheses squared, you'll be using those these guidance features to solve those types of questions. So this one is asking for y-intercept. So you can see down here at the bottom, the C value is the y-intercept. Well, C is the number that's at the end of your quadratic that has no x that's multiplied by it. So if I go back to this problem, the number at the end that has no x multiplied by it is negative 37 over 5. So I'm going to click in my box here, and I would type in negative 37 over 5, and that is my y-intercept. This one, axis of symmetry. Just like before, you always start off with x equals. Axis of symmetry answers are not just single numbers. They do have to be lines, so you have to put in the x equals. Now I'm going to go back to my guidance again, and if you don't have this information somewhere where you can easily reference it, it might be a good idea to pause the video at this point and actually copy this information down on a piece of paper, so you don't have to go back and keep watching the video again whenever you're going through and answering those iXL questions. So this is asking us for axis of symmetry. That's going to be this third star down here. So it has x equals, which we already have in, negative b over 2 times a. So I need to look at my equation and figure out what number is in the a position and what number is in the b position. So in the a position, that is going to be a 1. So I'm going to have a negative, we don't want that yet because your a position goes on the bottom. I am just going to write here a equals 1. My b value is what's multiplied by the x. That's going to be your 3. So my b value is 3. The formula, aside from the x equals, is negative b over 2 times a. So that is going to become negative 3 over 2 times 1. Well, 2 times 1 is just 2, and negative 3 over 2 does not reduce. Notice it does not say anything about writing them as decimals. It says proper fractions, improper fractions, or integers. So I would leave this as negative 3 over 2. And that's what I'm going to come up here and type in the box. Negative 3 divided by 2. Again, I have the x equals in front of that because this is an axis of symmetry. Okay. So next, I'm going to get rid of this since this was for a different question. This one is asking for the y-intercept again. Y-intercept is going to be your c value. That's at the end of your question, so not multiplied by any of the x's. So for this question, the c value at the end is going to be 6. So I just put in 6 there. This is another axis of symmetry. This is x equals, this one actually has a b value of 0 and an a value of 1. So you have negative 0 over 2 times 1, which is simply going to be 0. So x equals 0 is the axis there. Okay, now this one is asking us to find the vertex. This is where you would probably want to pull up Desmos as your calculator or use the calculator on your Chromebook because you are going to end up with fractions here whenever you do this. So to find the vertex, remember the x coordinate is negative b over 2 times a. Well, my b value is negative 3. My a value is a 1 because there's an understood 1 there in front of the x squared. So negative b is going to be a negative 3, which is going to turn into a positive 3 over 2 times 1. And that is going to be a positive 3 halves. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to type in positive 3 halves for the x coordinate. Now for the y coordinate, you do have to go back through and plug in the 3 halves where the x is. So you're going to plug in the 3 halves here, and you're going to plug in the 3 halves here. So you're actually going to plug in the 3 halves in 2 different places, and then you are going to simplify. This answer will be a fraction, so I suggest you use some type of calculator that will allow you to do fractions. Again, it does not say anything about decimals. if you put in your answer as a decimal, it will be marked incorrect. So if I type this in, I have 3/2 the quantity squared minus 3 times 3/2, and I'm typing this into my calculator right now, minus 7. The decimal that you get is negative 9.25, but again, I can't put in a decimal, so I have to change it to a fraction, and that fraction is going to be negative 37 over 4. You can do this again on Desmos, and I'm going to bring that up right now so you can see what that looks like. So if we go to Desmos, we don't necessarily want the graphing calculator. We just want a scientific calculator, and you can see up here at the top, we can do scientific. So if we want to do this, we were typing in, putting 3/2 everywhere that there was an x. So that's going to be 3/2 and then squared. And then it was minus 3 times 3/2. And then minus 7. And you can see here, it gives you the answer over here on the side. And then if I click this button here, it's going to convert that to a fraction for me. So you can use the Desmos scientific calculator to help you with any of these questions that you need to find fraction values for. And we submit that, and everything is all well and good. Okay. So now the rest of these, just to kind of talk you through this, do be careful, because in one like this, and they will give you things like this to trick you, it says, what's the minimum value? So the minimum value, again, is the y coordinate of the vertex. So you would find your negative b over 2a and then plug it back in. But in this question, the b value is 0 because there is no term that has an x multiplied by it. You only have the x squared and the c term, which is the constant. So just know that that is a possibility with these types of questions. Looking at K.3, you're probably going to rely on that Desmos calculator a lot. It says complete the function table. To complete the function table, you're going to take whatever x value they tell you, and you're going to replace the x in the equation with that value. So I am going to show how to do that on Desmos, just so you guys have an idea of what's going to be expected. So if I come over here, I'm going to clear that out. So I have -3 that I'm plugging in. So I do need, anytime you're plugging in, you do need to put parentheses. So parentheses -3, and then it's squared. And then I'm adding to that 3. Because the equation was x squared plus 3. So I square my x and I add 3. And you can see over here on the side, it gives me 12. So that's what I'm going to put in that spot. I would do the same thing for -1. The nice thing about Desmos is you can go right into where you need to replace and just replace the number that you need to fix. So the next one is 4. For +1, I'm going to get rid of that negative there. That's also going to give me a 4. And then I need to put in for a 3, and you can see that one gives me 12. And that's all you need to do. And this section is actually really easy whenever you have Desmos, even if I skip to a higher level. Notice this one does have 2 x's to fill in, but you're still doing the exact same thing. It's just you're now going to have to plug your x into 2 different places. So if I come back here and get rid of this, I'm going to have my first value I'm plugging in is -5. I have the 4, and then I put the parenthesis and then the -5. And then squared. Because remember, I'm only replacing the x, so the 4 is not squared. The 4 stays outside of the parentheses. And then plus 2 times my -5, and that gives me 90. So I go to my table, and I put in 90. -3, again, I have to change both of them. -3s, and I get 30. Desmos is really nice because it instantly is going to tell you what your answer is. Just make sure you don't look at the answer until you update both things you need to update. And I have a 2. And then if I come down here and get rid of the negatives, it's going to give me a 6. Okay, so that one was good. Sometimes they'll change up the variable, like this one has a Q instead of an X, but it's the exact same thing. Let's jump ahead. This one, again, nothing special about it. Even if you get up to the challenge zone, it's pretty much the same thing, especially if you have Desmos to help you going through this. Okay, and then we have K.5. K.5 is where you're actually going to be graphing a quadratic. So you can use Desmos to help you. You need to, notice it says plot the vertex. So your vertex, that's going to be your negative b over 2a, and then you would plug the negative b over 2a back into the question. So you have your negative b over 2a that you have to find first, and then it says plot another point on the parabola. You can plot halfway between or on grid lines. So you want to make sure that you can't plot a quarter of anything. You want to make sure you pick appropriate points whenever you're doing this one. And you could also use the Desmos graphing feature to help you as well. So my negative b over 2a for this one, b is 0 because there is no x value here. So this is going to equal negative 0 over 2 times my a value of 4. Well, it doesn't matter that I have a 4 as an a on the bottom because I still have 0 as my value. So my vertex, the x coordinate is 0. If I plug 0 in for the x here, we can go back and check that on Desmos to make sure. 4 times 0 squared still gives me 0. So the y coordinate there is also going to be 0. That's what I'm going to plot first. I'm going to put my first dot at the vertex. And you see as soon as I click, that dot appears. If I want to get rid of that dot, you click over top of it again. And notice as you move out, your parabola changes. So to get my second point, I need to pick some other x value. You only have to pick one on one side because when you plot one on one side, it automatically plots the one on the other side. So let's go with 1. 1 would be an easy value to pick. You want to pick something that's close to the x value that you found. So if I plug in 1, so it's 4 times 1 squared, I'm going to come back over here and let's change that 0 to a 1. And you can see that gives me 4. So I know I'm going to have a 4 here, and that's the point I have to plot. So 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. I click there, it draws in my graph, and that's going to give me what I want. Let's go to one that might have a little bit more to it because this is another one where b is 0, so you're going to get a similar answer there. Okay, this one. This is in a different format. You don't have to use negative b over 2a for this one because if you recall from what we copied down, it's in this format here where your vertex is your h and k rather than you having to do this difficult negative, well, not necessarily difficult, but the negative b over 2a formula. So since this one is in vertex form, I can just pick out the vertex h and k. So if I come here, h is the opposite of what's inside the parentheses. So h is going to be a positive 7. So my vertex, the x coordinate is a positive 7. K is what's added after the parentheses. Since there is nothing there, k is going to be a 0. So my first plot I'm going to make is at negative 7, 0, which is over here. So I need to pick some value that is close to 7. I'm going to go ahead and try 8. And then I can plug this in using Desmos or using a calculator to figure out what my y coordinate is going to be. So this x here I'm going to replace with an 8. I'm going to do that over here. So I have parentheses 8 minus 7 and then squared. And I still get 1. So 1 is going to be my next point, 8, 1. 8, 1 puts me up there. And you can see there's my nice curve. This one is similar. Let's jump and see if we have another one. This again is similar, but this one actually has an H and a K. So for this one, again, I take the opposite of what's in the parentheses, so that's going to be a positive 3. The K is what's added after the parentheses, which is a 1. So my very first plot should be at 3, 1. Now I want to pick something that's close to 3. I'm going to go with 4. And I'm going to go over to Desmos to actually figure out what that is going to be. I just wanted to write it down so I didn't have to keep referencing it. So I'm going to get rid of all this. I would type in the -8 and then the parenthesis, and then I'm replacing that x with a 4, minus 3, close that parenthesis again, square it, and then plus 1. So I basically recopied the entire question, but instead of the x, I put in a 4, and you can see that's equal to -7. So -7, and as soon as I plot that -7, that 4, it's going to be down here, -7, you can see it draws in my graph, and everything looks pretty good. If you do get values that are not on the coordinate plane, you may need to go back and try those again. Maybe you need to pick something that's like 4.5 instead of 4. Just make sure you're close to the vertex and things should work out the way that they're supposed to. This section isn't really difficult. It's just that this one probably requires the most work out of all of the other sections because you're not just finding the vertex, but you also have to find an additional point. So go back through, watch this video. If something doesn't make sense, please reach out to me. If you do have questions on the iXLs, please give me the module numbers of where you're having issues. Like this one is K.5 in Algebra 2. So if you're like, hey, Mrs. Mahoney, I need more help on K.5, make sure you stress that so I know which parts to help you with. Hopefully everything went okay with this. Again, I know this was a little bit long because it had all of the sections in it, but go back, rewatch anything you're not sure of, and reach out to me if you have any questions.